everybody, two Alpha Gals here. I'm Debbie Nichols.
And I'm Candace Mathis, and you're listening to In the Tall Grass, where we're sharing stories of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering joy.
Whether it's facing Alpha Gal syndrome or any other redefining chapter of life, we all have to learn how to navigate the journey through the tall grass. So here we go.
For the month of September, Dizzy Pig Seasonings has graciously given our listeners a coupon code that is good for 2 free samples with any seasoning purchase. Go to dizzypigbbq.com and use code ALPHAGALS, that's ALPHAGALS, to receive 2 free samples.
Today, Candace and I are going to talk to you a little bit about traveling. So we are actually taking a little gals trip this weekend. We're going to Orlando for the FAIR Food Allergy Summit, and we're really excited about that. And we feel like as we are collecting information and collecting our things to get out of town, we wanted to pass along some of our tips to you all living with allergies or alpha gal syndrome for what we do when we're leaving. Because a lot of people with alpha gal syndrome are very nervous about traveling. So we want to encourage others that it can be done safely and it is possible to do it and have a positive experience. And, you know, we weren't always confident with traveling, even if we are now. And especially early in our diagnosis, we used to be nervous, but now we've sort of developed a good routine for heading out of town. And I'm going to throw this over to Candace because after a couple of trips, including at least one all the way across the country, she's developed some really good strategies for packing and traveling safe.
Well, thanks, friend. Yeah, I definitely don't think I'm the guru. However, I think it really helped me having a wheat allergy for, over 12 years at the time of my alpha-gal diagnosis, because I became super passionate about becoming my own travel agent. That's what I would always joke about when we were preparing to travel. And I loved looking up restaurants ahead of time and doing pretty detailed digging into finding hidden gems that were gluten-free or, accommodated to gluten-free or other allergies. And so, yeah, I loved planning our trips. And I definitely agree with you in the beginning. I didn't know if I would travel again, honestly. It was really, really hard to even think about in the very beginning. So I will say, for those that are very new to this, give yourself grace and, allow yourself to be where you are, but know that traveling is possible when you're ready for that.
That's good advice, Candace. So if you were to get started giving somebody some advice on how to do this safely, where would you start? What are the most important things to do to prepare for traveling?
So the way that I go about doing this is I start with the accommodations first. So I really love looking into Airbnbs or VRBO, a house or a small apartment that has a kitchen. That is clearly top priority for me. If we're driving, then it makes it a lot easier for me to pack certain things that I need. But first and foremost, I will reach out to the host or hostess at the place that we choose to stay. I ask some pretty detailed questions. So as you know, I'm fume reactive. I'm also, due to my mast cell piece of alpha-gal, I have to be really aware of fragrances. So I learned the hard way. I will say that for most of this. I've ended up at Airbnbs not prepared, and that is what has allowed me to have this checklist, if you will, because I didn't think to even ask about plugins or air fresheners or any of cleaning products, any of that stuff. So now I will ask that out of the gate. Do you use any of these items that I'm sensitive to? And if you do, are you able to remove them far enough in advance? So I really start this dialogue between myself and the host to make sure that it's a good fit for me. So I really, like I said, I know hotels can accommodate in some ways. Like there are some hotels that have kind of kitchenette style. We've stayed at a few of those as well. And, it's just easier, I think, to ask a host about the more detailed triggers like laundry detergent, Do you use dryer sheets? I mean, I'm very, very sensitive. So you may not need to go as in depth as I do, but it's just nice to be able to carry on that conversation. So I would say first step would definitely be your accommodations and how, you can really be prepared prior to leaving the house.
You can really create a safe space for yourself if that's what you need. You can make it safe for you before you get there. In addition to that, when you're talking about making accommodations, I think it's really important to know what's around you, right? Like, where is the place that you're staying in proximity to emergency services or to the hospital? Or are there doctors that are going to be available just in case you have an issue with your allergy?
When we went out west, we actually were looking at staying at this really cool Airbnb in Wyoming. And honestly, I was super nervous about staying there because it was so far out from any sort of emergency service. So I'm really glad you brought that up because, again, that might be really important to some people. I mean, especially those of us that are really anaphylactic.
That's right. And alpha gal syndrome is super unpredictable. So it's good to be prepared and just hope that it's not a service that you're going to need.
Right.
But, if you do know, you planned ahead and you do know where things are, then at least when something happens, it's not going to pull the rug out completely. Well, it can still pull the rug out pretty good, but at least you can get back up with a little help from those who know how to handle
Yeah, absolutely.
managing them. Mhm.
No, that's a great point. And I would say, once you kind of plan out where you're going to stay, all of these important factors around it, then I really kind of look at this as like a map. Then I will literally plan our route and I will Google, is there a Whole Foods on our route to stop? What restaurants might I need to stop at depending on what time I'm traveling? So, I really break it down in that way. And then it just makes it more exciting because then, I found some really awesome places that I would have never even thought to stop at before. I know when we were driving to Missouri for our son's boot camp graduation, we ended up stopping in St. Louis, Missouri, and I found this amazing vegan taco place called Terror Tacos. Highly recommend it. It's completely vegan. My kids completely complained. they, they totally complained that it was not going to be good. And to this day, both of my teens talk about Terror Tacos and how they were the best tacos they've ever had in their life. So I don't know that I would have sought out such a niche kind of place had I not had this. And so it's been kind of cool and fun. And my kids now kind of look forward to it because I've done pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, and I can attest to that from all the pictures I get. And I think that that's really cool. It does give you something to be excited about because I don't know about you, but when we're trying to find somewhere to eat on the fly, and I'm like, I'm sure I'll find something safe for me to eat there. And then it ends up being just another salad with grilled chicken on it. And so it's good to have something to be excited about, something to look forward to, something that's tailored to you and like you experienced, your whole family can enjoy.
Yeah, because I think like what you just said, if you don't allow for that preparation, then the majority of the time, I would say you're gonna probably be disappointed. And then that's not allowing you to get out of the really crummy feeling of dealing with this. If you're not having these tiny little joyful moments, like we've talked about before, like the
That's
compound
right.
effect, right? Like it's so important. So all of the work ahead of time, it ends up paying off big time, I think.
That's right. And just one more thing I want to add after a situation that I had. My family went out west a couple years ago and we were staying, just outside of Death Valley. And I had done my homework. I had found a restaurant that I knew had some safe options for me. But when we got there, they actually had taken all the chicken off their menu. Those were the words of the waitress exactly. They had taken all the chicken off the menu. She said they almost blew up their fryer, and so they didn't do it anymore.
Wow.
So my point in sharing this with you is that it's good to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Just in case, make sure that you've packed some safe foods, some safe snacks, and really the Airbnb or one of those other suite style hotels that offers you some cooking options, that can contribute to a really good backup plan too, giving you somewhere to cook your own food
Yeah.
just in case you get a surprise at the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And something I failed to mention that I always pack with me if we're driving. I am a lunatic, although everyone listening can probably relate, but my kids
I
are like,
bet.
"Are you bringing the whole kitchen?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably." But I'll bring like my favorite pot, kind of my favorite knife. I love cooking. So if you do not have a good chef's knife in your kitchen, in your Airbnb, I get a little cranky. But I've learned kind of the things that I want to have with me just in case, like it just eliminates the fear part of it. And I also learned I have an issue with white coffee filters. So I bring my pour over coffee, my coffee pot and kettle. So yeah, I'm a little extra in all the ways, but
You know what? I think you said it best a minute ago. I think that there are people who are listening who can really benefit from these tips, right? Because when you're in the throes of this, before you get it all figured out, sometimes it's more appealing to just think about staying home than trying to go out on an adventure, which is going to require so much. But if it means taking a minute or an extra tote bag to bring your kitchen items and that's going to make the traveling more enjoyable for you, then that's way better than spending 6 hours looking for a restaurant on the fly that's going to not end up having anything that you can eat but french fries or something like that. So
yeah, exactly. And if you have the room to, do it to bring it in your car, like you said, just do it. And speaking of being in the car, because you and I have both done the road trip.
that's right.
I've done it twice, but I was not as well prepared the first time because I was very newly diagnosed when we went to Canada and had to learn the hard way a lot. But with being in the car for hours, do you have any favorite snacks that you like to pack with you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, anybody who knows me well knows that popcorn is my go to always. It always has been. I have a niece who is about 24, 25 now, who still remembers the time where Aunt Debbie ate all the popcorn. So I almost always have popcorn with me. Even though it's not a super filling snack, it's a treat for me. So I find a safe brand, like Lesser Evil is a really good choice. And they've got a lot of flavors that are all still safe for me. So I like that. I like to have Lara bars with me, but you have to be a little bit careful with that because some of them contain peanuts and there's some question about the peanuts and if those are really safe. But there are a couple of flavors that I love that don't have peanuts and I'm like the coconut one. It's maybe coconut pie flavor, coconut cream
Oh
pie.
yeah,
That's
that's a good one.
that's one of my favorites. And that's nice because then you're getting some protein there too, so that I won't be hangry when I'm trying to find a restaurant to eat at. So
Well,
those are my top two. How about you? What about you? What are your favorites to
yeah,
bring
I'm with
along?
you. I'm with you on the lesser evil. That one's been because I have a wicked sweet tooth. So their Himalayan, well, what is it? The salty sweet one.
Mhm.
That one's like my go-to for in the car. And I also really like Go Macro bars because they have protein and they have all of the certifications. They're certified vegan, gluten-free, they're raw, so they're super clean and I really like those. So I'll pack those as a bar. And sometimes, it just depends. Sometimes I'll pack a little bit more as far as it just depends on how far we're going. I used to make chicken salad a lot before I went plant-based. That was kind of a go-to that you could put on an ice pack and I could quickly make safe little sandwiches to hand back to the kids and all that stuff.
We do
So
that a lot too, like the on the go sandwiches. We will often do almond butter. Well, my family likes peanut butter, but I prefer the almond butter. So I think that's one of the things my kids think of the most when it comes to our road trip. So the peanut butter sandwiches.
yeah, that's super easy. I love almond butter too.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
huge go-to for me. And, I know one of the biggest, most critical pieces that we need when we leave is our toolkit.
That's right.
because you never know. And it's so helpful to just have that reassurance that you have your emergency kit with you wherever you are. I mean, that's the first thing that I've been thinking about this week in preparing for our own travel. And we're flying, and I haven't flown in a long time. I have flown once since my alpha gal diagnosis, but it's like, what am I going to carry it in? So we need to take a trip to Target this week because I need a
Yeah,
new
I'm going to be
bag.
picking up some snacks and things. But you know what? Okay, so this is a tip that I learned from you just recently. I love a nice handbag. Actually, we have a friend who is linked in with these really beautiful handbags that are made by women in the Dominican Republic. The bags are beautiful, they hold a lot. I just love them. I love a bag. That's my point. But what you showed me was you had this cute little black, over the shoulder bag that was like the size of a fanny pack, but like way cooler. And I totally copied you. I pulled a little sister there, and I had one that I actually had bought. It was like the Carrie Underwood brand from Dick's that I bought for a theme park one time. And now I'm carrying everything around in it because it fits EpiPens really, really nicely. I can still fit the Unisom. I can fit a couple credit cards and my phone and my keys. All the really important things fit right in there. And then I can tuck it into a bigger bag so I can bring my laptop or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's got me thinking about traveling and how that's going to just come right along with me, that bag.
Same, because my cute little Target purse that you're talking about only has my medications. I had to go buy a wallet that actually fit into that purse. But I refused. Like, I got so tired of carrying this like massive tote bag with me everywhere just to fit all my stuff in. And yeah, it's great. So we can just shove that into our carry-on or whatever. But it's critical to just always have that on hand. And then it alleviates any of the added stress. Should something arise, then you're completely prepared.
That's absolutely right. And something just came to mind about that too, because I do need to go and replenish my supply of Unisom sleep melts, because that's my step one if I start to feel like I'm having a reaction. But I was thinking, one of our early steps is also liquid Zyrtec. And so we need to be sure that it is the right size to be able to take in a carry-on bag. So that's something to keep in mind too when you're packing your stuff. If you've got other liquid medications that are part of your toolkit, even the Genexa medications or something like that, then you are going to want to make sure that they're not going to take it from you at the airport. Because I did hear a story about a woman who had accidentally put those things in her carry-on bag. Did you hear about this?
No.
She'd put them in her carry-on bag, and I don't remember if I read it on social or on CNN or the news somewhere, but she had packed her EpiPens and realized that as they were going through security and wanted to get her bag back, and she couldn't get her bag back to get her EpiPens, but then they wouldn't let her fly because she was a safety risk. So that's something to keep in mind too. Yeah. So be sure you check with your airport and the rules and the airline and everything like that, that you can have all the things that you need.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, I've never run into that. I flew to Dallas last year and everything made it through. So I'll definitely look into that again.
I should add, I also flew overseas back in December, and I didn't have any trouble carrying all of my stuff to my EpiPens and all the things I needed. So don't be fearful about it. Just find answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, we could do a whole nother episode. I just had a complete thought just about accessibility and, traveling to, I don't know, if you're going to like an NBA game or a Coliseum concert, really want to dig into that more because there are a lot of options that we have. I ended up bringing my own water into a Coliseum, and it is totally allowed if it's not open for people that need special accommodations for food allergies. So just side note, if you're traveling to an event like that, there are accommodations that allow for you to bring in what you need. So you just might have to speak with someone ahead of time. And talking about traveling and kind of sizing, I've really loved bringing my own travel size, safe products. I learned the hard way a couple of years ago, and that's what kind of got me thinking about this roadmap, if you will, to travel and being prepared. And we went to this sweet Airbnb, and we got there kind of later in the evening, and we were getting ready to make dinner, and they had Dawn dish soap, and they had another unsafe soap in the bathroom. And I looked at my husband and I was like, shoot, I did not bring soap. So we literally had to like go to the grocery store so I could find safe soap. And that's really important to me now, is to make sure that I have travel size dish soap. I love Dr. Bronner's because you can kind of use it as an all-in-one, like for bath and for household. So that's kind of my go-to for that. And I just try to bring as much of those products that I need that are safe in a smaller container or amount, and toilet paper, just like we've shared recently that some brands are not safe. So pack my little safe bag as far as those kind of products go too.
Sure, like a little household bag, household travel bag. Yeah, that's a good idea. You want to keep in mind, I know you mentioned what kind of laundry soap they use in an Airbnb, but they're not willing to wash their stuff with a safe brand. That's something you may want to bring if there's a washer available.
You had a good tip that you shared with me a while ago about bringing your own pillowcase, which I bring my pillow everywhere. I'm a little
I do too.
I can't stuff my pillow into my bag for this week. That's all right.
It's okay. We'll be okay. We've got a plan.
Yeah. But I thought that was a great tip, just so that at least you're not like sleeping on a pillowcase that could potentially have been washed with a dryer sheet.
That's right.
So yeah, do you have any other favorite tips as far as traveling? Because you've traveled a lot. You've done a lot more international travel, I'd say, since you were diagnosed than I have.
Yeah, and I really haven't had any issues for the most part as far as reactions go, even overseas. I do remember thinking I was starting to have a reaction when we were in Iceland last year, and I was immediately thinking about where the hospitals were. It's an easy country to navigate, I think. We were right in Reykjavik this time, so I wasn't fearful, and it didn't even end up being a reaction. And actually, Iceland made it so easy to find safe food for me. There's so many options when it comes to clean eating and vegan choices. I think we found a couple places that we ended up repeating a couple times because the food was vegan and it was good enough that my husband loved it. So that was a really lovely surprise for me, because that was my first time being there since my diagnosis, and it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want to move there.
I know we need to take a trip to Iceland. Oh, I'd love to live there. Yeah. And it's, when you find those restaurants, I would say for anyone traveling anywhere, and no matter what restaurant you choose to go to, it's definitely worth it to give the restaurant a call ahead of time. I would always suggest calling during their off hours, when they're not in peak service, so that they can give you undivided attention and you can really speak to them without feeling rushed or hear a lot of people in the background.
That's a great tip.
And you might be able to speak to the chef then, so you're really, again, it's this theme of being prepared. You're setting yourself up to have a good experience. And
that's right.
Just like Travis Milton said in one of our first interviewed podcasts with him, I seek out farm to table style restaurants just because those chefs tend to enjoy the inspiring challenge of creating something magnificent for us and to allow us to really have this unbelievable experience. I mean, I think anything, you can probably attest to this, Debbie, like anything other than a salad with grilled chicken is it's probably going to feel magnificent, right?
That's right. Yes, that's great advice. The farm to table style is great. And for so many reasons too, right? Because it's going to be more clean eating, easier to determine what the ingredients that are used in it. And like you said, the chef may be more interested in, the creative challenge. Something else I would add to that too is if you go in with a really open mind, you might be surprised. One thing that my family does when we're traveling is we try different ethnic fare, because there are ethnicities that lean towards being or offering more vegetarian or vegan options. And for example, we will often find a really nice, well-rated Thai restaurant because I can get, vegan pad Thai and I love it. I do eat my body weight in it. But another option would be Mexican food. I love doing Mexican food because, everything is sort of individual. You can pick the toppings you want on something, but a word of caution there is that I have reacted from a plate of steaming steak fajitas coming by my face. Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind. but one way to avoid that would be to sit outside if that's an option. So
Yeah. And I would say too, didn't we have a restaurant here locally that cooked their chips in lard?
yes,
I
we
don't
do.
I don't know how common that is, but I remember now if we do choose Mexican to double check that as well.
That is a great piece of information because I had no idea. And I was diagnosed probably just a few weeks before my birthday a couple years ago. And we celebrated at that same Mexican restaurant. And I remember being home that night and feeling so bloated, like my skin was literally going to just bust open.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out what it was that I had eaten because I had taken all the precautions, but I hadn't even thought about what their tortilla chips were fried in.
Yeah.
So that's a good point worth mentioning too for people to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
And another great tool to have when you're traveling and you're visiting restaurants is our stick it to the ticket notepad. Actually, what it is it's a little sticky notepad, and you can circle your alpha gal allergies that are on it and actually give it to your restaurant wait staff to stick on the order ticket so it goes back to the kitchen. I used this when we were at the beach this past summer, and it was so helpful, because all the restaurants were crowded. There were a lot of potential ways for me to receive contamination, but this way I knew that for those restaurants that still take, your order on a ticket, that my allergies were making it all the way back to the kitchen. And I did not have a single reaction that week we were at the beach. So
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great tip. It's a great
yeah,
tip. And I think it is.
yeah,
It's helpful on so many levels. And then it allows for a talking point around education of alpha gal too.
that's exactly right. That's right. Yeah, because I don't know that anybody I gave it to was familiar with alpha gal syndrome. So,
Yeah.
the more you know.
Yeah. So I think my final words of encouragement would be once you're feeling up to it, traveling is possible. Get out there, have experiences, just go out prepared, do, the work up front and have fun being your own travel agent. Just give it a try. And if you need help, reach out to us. We're happy to give you any more detailed pointers. And we look forward to hearing the adventures that you guys go on. So please make sure you share it with us.
And in addition to that, if anybody is actually going to find themselves at the Fair Food Allergy Summit this week, we would certainly love to chat with you and meet you. And so don't hesitate to track us down. We'll be the cheerful, happy ones because we're not hungry.
Yes, come find us. And until next time, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on In the Tall Grass. Visit us at 2alphagals.com. That's TWOalphagals.com. Or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at 2alphagals. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a review and help us grow this community.
We're all faced with obstacles on our journey, whether it be food allergies or tick-borne diseases. You might outgrow the reactions, but you won't outgrow the person you become. Ticks suck, but life doesn't have to.